that provided the services for family planning, basically, to receive Medicaid money. So what the state did was it terminated the waiver program and said, okay, we'll fund this by 100% Missouri dollars. It won't have any federal money attached to it at all. And the paperwork that was filed is online, and I have citations to it if anybody wants to look it up. But in that paperwork, they announced, okay, we're giving up $8.5 million federal dollars in order to fund this women's service program on our own so that we can comply with our state legislature and not pay any of this money to abortionists. And that succeeded. We actually pulled that program out of Medicaid and made it a state program. But we declared that we were giving up $8.5 million. Well, that's not maximizing federal funding, is it? If we tried to do that when this initiative, if this initiative is ever passed, if we tried to do that or anything similar, and we were giving up federal money, our own Constitution would bar it, would forbid us from doing our own programs so that we wouldn't give money to Planned Parenthood or to other abortions. And, thank you. And that's, in my mind, that's one of the biggest problems we have. And there are other problems. I've already gone about 10 minutes beyond what I should have. And so I better stop here. Thank you very much for all your attention. Please take some questions.
I'd like to open it up now for any questions that any of you may have. I do want to point out that this initiative is supported by Planned Parenthood and NARAL. So they see in it what we see in it. So are there any questions? Oh, excuse me, yes.
Yeah, talking about this initiative, I can foresee sometime in the near future at my parish, the Social Justice Committee putting on a petition drive to sign this, to get this in front of people, get them signed after Mass, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a shorthand that is available that I could go to my pastor and say, if anybody comes wanting to use parish facilities for this, here are the reasons in a few bullet points that I could present to him that would sway him to go ahead with that.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Okay, thank you. The question is, there's a parish that's probably going to have a petition signing event coming up, and is there anything that we can provide to the pastor in a form of short bullet points that would help dissuade him from sponsoring it? There are a couple ways to answer it. The first way is, I don't know what he's going to be allowed to do or not allowed to do with the Archdiocese, and I have no desire to get into that. But we do have several things that you could show him if he'll read them. One is in the materials that we're providing today. I've got about a half a page on what I just said about that. We've also already put our problems with the Medicaid expansion, at least this particular problem, into the last Missouri Right to Life newsletter. So on the back side of the February 2020 issue, the Missouri Right to Life newsletter, and we encourage everybody to become a member and to get a copy. There's also extra copies on the table there, and it'll give you some things that you can give to it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Father.
I understand that the Missouri Catholic Conference, related to this parish question there, are pretty much supporting this. Has Missouri Right to Life been in any kind of dialogue or in discussion with the Archdiocese or with the Catholic Conference about the problems that you've been expounding, Jim, in this proposed constitutional?
They did not seek our opinion on it before issuing their own, but through conversations with our executive director and the head of Missouri Catholic Conference in Jefferson City, they were very much aware of our concerns about this. So there was, they were aware of it. I personally had a conversation with the head of Missouri Catholic Conference in Jefferson City when we were at the same Mass, and we can't speak for them and the position that they've taken, but they were very much aware of the same concerns that we have, and they're very much aware that the initiative is supported by Planned Parenthood, and NARA. Well, yes, Liza.
I think overall, the success that the pro-life movement has had in Missouri is remarkable. It is worth celebrating, and it's because of people like the two of you and many others who've been laboring for decades to make Missouri such a pro-life state. And the way the numbers of abortions have come so far down is just extraordinary. And I salute you.
Well, we couldn't do what we do if we didn't have the support of the Missouri Right to Life members and the pro-life citizens of Missouri, because we would just be two other voices up there. I do have to say, Missouri Right to Life, we operate with kind of a skeleton crew. I mean, people think that we're like the big elephant in the room. We have one full-time employee at Missouri Right to Life. Most of our people are volunteers. We have, I think at this point, 4 or 5 part-time people that work in our state office. We do have an office in St. Louis and an office in Kansas City. But for the most part, our members are Missouri Right to Life. And it's only through their support, both in their financial support, and I also have to say that Missouri Right to Life operates on a shoestring, just comparing us to other wonderful pro-life organizations. Our budget is minuscule compared to that. But I really think that we're also supported by a lot of prayers. And I know within our own organization we do a lot of praying. And we do feel that we've been greatly blessed with many successes, because there's organizations like Michigan Right to Life that has a $5 million annual budget and has tremendous membership and support, and they haven't been nearly as successful in passing pro-life legislation in Michigan as we have in Missouri. So I think, again, it's the individual members of Missouri Right to Life and the pro-life citizens that make this issue a priority when they go to the polls. And something I don't tell people enough, Missouri Right to Life is a bipartisan organization. And we have supported and endorsed, our PAC has endorsed pro-life candidates from both parties. And there have been times in Missouri where without our pro-life Democrats, we would not have gotten the Women's Right to Know bill, and we would have not have gotten the partial birth abortion ban. It's because we had such a large number of pro-life Democrats in Missouri that were willing to vote to overturn their own governor's veto that we were able to get those bills. And some of those legislators were greatly penalized by not getting the committees they wanted to be on, not getting their bills advanced, not getting the financial support of their party. They really took a great risk. Unfortunately, the parties have become so polarized on the issue that we don't have that same kind of bipartisan support anymore in Missouri. But we hope that it's a shame that it is a political issue, but we didn't make it that. We just have to play in the arena we've been placed in, and that's what it is. As Jim said, their newsletter, we would put in all of these handouts and Jim's full statement inside of the newsletter that's on the center table as you leave. And we have one for everybody here, and if you have a family member or neighbor or somebody else or a pastor that you would like to share this information with, I encourage you to take an additional one. But those are available for you there, and Jim and I will be here to answer any questions you have after the event. Just 2 more things I wanted to call your attention to. Missouri Right to Life has implemented a new program called Voter Voice, which takes advantage of the new technology to send out text messages to individuals when we have an issue ongoing, like if we have a vote coming up and we want you to contact your legislator, then you would get a text, and with just a push of a button, your support for that bill would go directly to your legislator. And the only thing that information that you give us is going to be used for is for this program. And so the more people we have that are signed up for the Voter Voice, the more impactful we can be on legislation in Missouri. And also there is a membership flyer. If you're not currently a member of Missouri Right to Life, I ask you to consider joining Missouri Right to Life. It's a $10 donation in order to do that, and that is the main source of our funding, is our $10 membership. If you're not sure if you are a Missouri Right to Life member or not, if you're not getting the newsletter in the mail, you're not a member. So that's a good way of knowing that. So again, I want to thank the Mincindy Foundation and Liza and Joe and St. Mary Victories and Father Harrison. It's always an honor to speak on this issue, and we're very, very privileged to have been invited to be here with you today.
Thank you so much, Pam and Jim, for these very informative and encouraging presentations that you've given about our pro-life state here. I'd just perhaps like to add a little comment from the point of view of one who is not a native-born American. I've lived in quite a number of different countries, and as I think most of you know, I was naturalized as a US citizen a bit over 3 years ago. And when I look at the kind of progress that we've seen in pro-life legislation in this country, particularly in Missouri, but in America generally, one thing that really makes me proud to be an American, we might think things are really pretty sort of bad in general here. In my experience, having lived in Australia, Italy, and Puerto Rico, visited a number of different countries, the pro-life movement in general in this country, I think, is the strongest and most active of any of the Western nations where abortion is such a real issue. And there's so much diffidence and indifference in most of the other Western countries, in my native country of Australia, Western Europe, in Italy, where you have the big influence of the Pope and the Catholic Church. The pro-life movement is much more insipid and weak than it is in this country. So, there's one thing that makes me proud to be an American and proud to be a Missourian, because Missouri, as the show-life state, is the leader in this nation of this wonderful movement to respect human life. I'd just like to conclude with another little word of thanks again to the Cardinal Mindszenty Foundation for the great job that they do here. As Liza said, it was founded back in the 1950s with the specific aim of combating communism. A lot of people think, well, communism, that's pretty much dead or dying. Don't believe it. It's making a comeback. Cultural Marxism, the long march through the institutions, in education, Hollywood, the corporate world, is making a terrible impact. Some of you might know there's a conservative newspaper called the Epoch Times that has a whole series of articles about this, well worth subscribing to. But do take some of the handouts of the newsletters of the Cardinal Mindszenty Foundation. They're wonderfully written pieces, very modestly, I think all of them anonymous, and they have some great writers there about good things that are happening. But we mustn't underestimate the tremendous power of this destructive, godless, anti-life, anti-marriage, left-wing ideology that is corrupting our young people, above all through the public education system. A recent survey among millennials, those who are born from around 1980 up to the new millennium, incredibly, something like 30%, 25-30%, expressed a favourable opinion of communism, and quite a bit more than that, socialism. The idea of an almighty state that gives us freebies and handouts and takes care of us, it's a seductive ideology, and it's as relevant now as it ever has been to combat this influence of left-wing Marxist thinking in our culture and in our nation. So do support the Cardinal Mindszenty Foundation. As I say, take some of the newsletters there. Finally, I'd like to draw your attention here. You've seen these plans that we have on display up here. Possible developments for St. Mary of Victories. We've had benefactors who've been helping us to promote the idea of something we can do to help St. Mary of Victories keep going. But that depends on supporters, those who come here, those who can be benefactors, the Hungarian community. This is the Hungarian Cultural Centre, as well as a historic church. So do give us your support when you can. Maybe perhaps try to make a point of attending Mass here, say once a month, not necessarily leaving your own parish, but do support us because we are struggling to keep going and we appreciate every bit of help that you can give us. Thank you. Let's stand for a final blessing. The Lord be with you.
With your spirit.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in the peace of Christ.
Thanks be to God.
And stay well.